Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And I am TK.
And that makes this X is for Podcast, your premium media response show where we talk about comics. Man, we love comics. Comics are great. And we're here to talk about some of them, here to sink our teeth into what we enjoyed about this week's books. Maybe have some commentary for some stuff we didn't love so much.
I was going to say, it's the point that we're supposed to talk about what we enjoyed because I have been failing the assignment for months now.
Yeah, I did a big bit of catch up today, or at least I've started a big bit of catch up this week, really. I am trying to go back, grab every single book I have not been reading. If it's been on the shelf, I want to go read it. I want to make sure that I've read every issue of everything. Because nothing's more frustrating than when you realize that okay, this is so random, but we covered some Wolverine minis and events a couple of months ago, and I blew my own mind because I saw that Savage Wolverine number 8 came out in September, and I never finished that book.
Yeah,
and then I was trying to piece together reading all of the Wolverine event tie-ins, so Blood Hunt. And what's the other one? Venom War. And I went to go put those together. And then I realized Blood Hunt has been over since May or something. June, maybe. So, oh, dude, it's been over forever because there's been Venom War. And there were 3 issues of Venom War. And the third issue of Venom for Wolverine. And the third issue of Wolverine Venom War came out in November. So Venom War kicked off in September. So, the latest Blood Hunt could have ended as, August.
It ended, the main series ended July. Yeah, it was mostly over by July.
And so, I'm sitting here realizing, okay, books are going a little too fast. I'm losing track. But the other side of it, it's also taking a really long time. Didn't Doom take over the universe, a few months back? And, where has he been? Isn't the whole point of what we read today kind of he's been nowhere?
Yes, that is the whole point. So Doom took over in Blood Hunt. So Doom took over in Blood Hunt Strange Academy, really, more than anything. Last issue of which was July 24th. So Doom took over around July, end of July, August, September, October, November, December. So yeah, it's been almost 6 months.
And what's he been doing? It turns out he's been getting okay. So I was not expecting to jump in this early. Okay.
Well, we don't have any shit to talk about Tom Brevoort, so that's thing one. Tom Brevoort's been a little quiet on the Western Front lately.
And I'm fascinated because Bendy Dick come on his back, opened his mouth and was like,
"Did he? I missed this."
Yeah, and he was like, I am not going to be in one of the Avengers movies I was going to be in because of the Kang change. And my role in the other one is different than you'd expect now. And so...
was he mad?
No, he was conversational, giving some interview.
Oh, okay.
And he just kind of and that's sort of how you can spill things cool because producer Kevo and I have this thing. No, guys, I do not believe for one moment that Tom Holland is actually so confused that he walks up to cement mixers and crawls into them thinking it's
yeah.
dead.
I mean, this is a very important theory that you've always had.
There's people that still think that poster accidental reveal was real. Oops, no. All these things. The only thing that I think was real, unfortunately, is Mark Ruffalo live streaming that movie. That was weird. Yes. That was a really weird thing. But yeah, exactly.
Mark Ruffalo isn't movie star sexy. He's guy at my gym sexy, which is always so interesting, but good for him. But so
you have a theory that I think is 100% correct, that Tom Holland is not baffled. He's not accidentally spoiling everything and making great headlines. He is specifically, his agent was like, he can seem stupid on command. And Marvel was like, we'll use it.
Love a plan.
And every interview will tell him to just leak something and be like, oh, whoops, I can't believe I did that.
Can you believe I'm lucky enough to be dating her?
Well,
cool. I condense.
Engaged to now.
And matching tats, get it?
Weirdos.
But so who believes in love? So I bring all that up though because like there are ways to engage with fandom, even in ways that maybe the studio would find questionable. Where I've been really thinking about this more and more lately, and like dissecting the death of Krakoa, and how that kind of feeds back into this cycle of comics, and how that totally has something to do because like they laid the seeds of Doom seeing people could take over the universe in Krakoa.
Yeah, Krakoa.
Like Doom seeing this is Krakoa.
Yeah.
Right. And so he sort of Krakoa-opted this whole situation. And where I'm thinking about it more and more is like the relationship that a lot of creators had during the Krakoan age was unsustainably inappropriate. It was unsustainably inappropriate. These creators were coming on and talking about the books that were not even out yet and saying, here's a character I can't wait to debut for you guys in 6 months. I don't even have the solicit written yet. Marvel hasn't even approved the character yet. I'm showing you the designs and leaking part of the script with redacting. And it was kind of like the Holland relationship. It kind of were like, oh, we're giving a little bit more than we should. But it was also kind of like the Brevoort relationship where it's just so unbridled and it's just so exactly what you're thinking at the time. It feels like we saw a little too much about how the sausage gets made for a little too long. And I can't help that when I read these books now, I'm reading them with a very specific like lens on, and you cannot convince me for one fucking second that the Xavier arc we're getting now is the Xavier arc that was in the From the Ashes pitch. That fucking preview, that 8-page thing where they made it look like Xavier was the most evil man in the universe for a couple of pages, and he was out to kill the humans now. You cannot convince me that Xavier was the Xavier in Uncanny 8. The plan had to change somewhere, folks.
Yeah, which brings me to one of the things I wanted to talk about in relation to both how we don't have a Brevoort this week and we're talking about Uncanny. Gail pulled a little Brevoort / Dan Slott. Did you see this?
No.
This was last week, or this was last month. This was for the previous issue. This was for the last issue of Raid on Grey Malkin. But somebody got on Twitter, which we're not going to talk about that much anymore, but it's relevant to this particular story. Somebody got on there and was like, this is not a great storyline. Everybody is written weird. The Avians, the Cancer 5, this retcon makes no sense. And Gail hopped on and was like, it's not a retcon. Sorry you don't like this. She's giving a little bit of attitude. Which technically she is correct. It is not a retcon. She introduced this new idea, although Charles Xavier being one of the Avians is maybe a retcon. It's kind of in that zone where it's like you're not saying you're saying not, there's a piece of information you didn't have that is retroactively being added.
It's like a reveal con. It's
yeah, exactly.
Like a ret ad. I don't know.
Yeah, we do have a little. I think we have a slightly different rubric for this type of thing where you're like,
you're onto
hey, you character might not have known you're one of these people. So anyway, but she got on and was a little sassy, and I just this guy's thoughts are not super constructive, but it's also just like, Gail, don't worry about it. Like, this is one dude and he didn't like it, and maybe you don't have to hop on and say anything. Because the thing about it is I am not compelled to get on Twitter and say that it's all bad, but in my carefully planned review show that I do with my partners here, I'm prepared to say Raid on Grey Malkin was maybe not my favorite thing in the entire world. I actually maybe liked it more by the end of it than I thought I did when it started. And I have some positive thoughts. I'm maybe a little more on board with the whole direction these books are going in, but like, I don't know. I also was a little bit, no matter what, I did like it. So for one thing, it surprised me that this guy was like, Rogue's not acting the way she's supposed to, as his critique after the 4th issue, where it is revealed that one of the avians is specifically making them all act in a way that they're not supposed to. That's actually the point, brother. Like, you may not love Gail Simone's writing, but in terms of that one, she knocked it out of the park. Everybody said the same thing in issue 1 of Raiden and Grey Malcolm, which is, oh, everybody's acting really weird. And like, Rogue shouldn't be talking to Cyclops like this. It's weird. Rogue doesn't do that. They shouldn't be fighting like this. Lo and behold, it's because there's a dude who has telepathic abilities who's making them behave that way. So Gail, great job. Great reveal there. The fact that you're calling the guy an avian and you're saying there's 5 of them and they all have a tumor. Oh no! Right now I'm not sold, but I wasn't sold on this Rogue being a bitch in issue 1 of this thing. So maybe you've got a great plan, and I'll be sold on it by the end. The ethos of Charles Xavier still mattering so much is not my favorite thing in the whole world. I was reminded of that again this week because we had Xavier's X-Men, Xavier's Secret, which thank God Nico reminded me is actually just the first bunch of From the Ashes Infinity comics, because I did not remember that was the case.
No, we almost covered it this week, and then I clicked on it and was like, "Ooh, what's the plot? Let me." Oh, that's what it is.
Well, and God love you. I didn't say anything when you said this, but you were like, "No, we read this. Like, you've already read this." And no, I actually had not, because I quit on it. So I had read the Cyclops and Jean story in the Infinity comics, but that is about where I was like, "Hey, fuck this." And so I never read the Xavier story, which is the Xavier story is where we start to get into exactly what you were talking about, which is like, this feels like there was a different plan at some point that really changed, because the Xavier's Secret is a terrible place to buy lingerie. And also, his secret is that he's actually a great guy who was doing nice things and making himself the villain because he had to. And he actually replaced all the people he killed with flesh bots, which makes it okay. And so now we're in this weird zone where we ended Krakoa at least with the conviction of Xavier is that bitch. He is as dark-hearted as you think he is, and he thinks he's doing it for the greater good, but
you are dark-sided.
Yes, exactly. He thinks he's doing it for the greater good, but is it worth being that evil? I don't think so. Was it worth killing all the people on the Agnew? I don't think so. And then we start getting these retcons where it's like he didn't actually kill any of them. He is saying he's a monster and that they should keep him in the prison. I don't know. I really respect Gail's game, and I do think she's a great writer. Doesn't mean I respond to everything she does perfectly. I think Jed MacKay writes a lot of stuff really well. It's not all for me, but like, you can't garner Moon Knight fanatics the way that he managed to with his Moon Knight run and not be something of they're not all idiots. I'm sorry.
Unless you're Oscar Isaacs in a bathing suit, I don't think you can do that regularly. What the fuck? It is 100% not for me. That Moon Knight run it just wasn't for me. I don't care about Moon Knight. But deep cut, we literally, TK and I jumped off of covering that Moon Knight run. We had a group of dedicated
God love them.
And
that's kind of why I'm like, they're
dedicated.
They're all smart, lovely people. Like for me, I would never be
good reviewers.
Yeah. And so the point wasn't like, this is a bad story for idiot readers. It simply wasn't for me. But like, game recognized game, I saw Jed MacKay create a fandom for this character basically out of nothing. And, create Hunter's Moon and, all these Jed McKay, you ruined the champion
You
vote.
ruined the champ. I will never
Go screw,
fucking
McKay.
forgive him. Go screw. He created too many cool, visually dynamic characters that were co-created by brilliant artists.
Yeah.
That like half of the Marvel Contest of Champions 24/24 summoner vote was Moon Knight characters created
Nico
or
and I are just
recreated by him.
So ready to have it be Elektra
Or Echo.
And then we didn't get them, whatever, so we're like, okay, it's Patsy time, Hellcat all the way. We know it's going to be Hellcat, like it can't be anybody else. It's going to be Hellcat. It's down to 2 different versions of Moon Knight. Okay, that's all. We'll see. So yeah, Jed McKay doing something right, but again, his X-Men work really not where I'm at. His Avengers work, I think really where the Avengers maybe needs to be at, but not where I'm at. I don't know. I just don't know with any of it. We started kind of a new chapter with this Uncanny #1. We had the raid on Grey Malkin, which was at the end of the day a perfectly fine coordinated mini event with the thing that Gale and Jed McKay seem to be doing great coordinating with each other. So
if I had a request, it should have been an annual series. It should have been like an annual, like it should have been 2 issues.
Yeah, 2 extra large.
Yep, and an X-Men annual and an Uncanny X-Men annual. These containers matter because they illustrate how the story works. And if this was a clear demarker for both books that had a synced up number at a synced up time with a synced up month, it would have felt like something really cool. But like, it's so stupid. I don't want to hear it. It's dumb because like I actually have to do the navigating. Marvel doesn't make it easy to read these mini crossovers. If it's not called Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman, the Marvel Unlimited app functionality for it is crappy. Yeah. And like it actually is tough to read some of this stuff sometimes with the way you guys collect it.
And sometimes if you're just maybe not really paying attention a little bit, like I didn't necessarily realize it was over with the last issue of Uncanny X-Men, and then this issue #9. So it ends with Uncanny 8, and then Uncanny 9 has a lot of visual references to stuff that's happening in Raid on Grey Malkin on its cover.
Yes.
So I was like, this is the next issue for a minute. You just kind of get into a headspace. And I think you nailed the pitch. Like make it 2 extra large annuals. I think that's a brilliant idea. Because it's not a bad story. It's not bad to tell it. It's not bad to want these characters to cross over.
And it's my favorite McKay on X.
Sure. But yeah, it got a little, it's just with timing and 2 fat issues, one released 1 week, one released the next week, to me is so much better than 4 regular issues, one released 1 week, and then maybe 2 weeks goes by and you get the next one, and then you got to wait 3 more weeks to start the next month for the next one to go. And it just gets a little confusing. What?
2 fat issues is what I'm going to name your chest in that really good post you put on Blue Sky.
That's what I got. I might be wearing a very large. Yeah, I got to show everybody my floppies. The extra large. So yeah, I don't know. I went into this like not being 100% cognizant of the fact that Raid had. I was by the time I started the issue because I rewrite everything. But I started the morning doing catch up and being like, oh, I think maybe it's 6 issues. I don't know what's happening here. And then we're just kind of at a new starting place. This is cute. This is great. They go to a mall and they get attacked. It's very X-Men. That's literally how X-Men the Animated Series starts.
Yeah, it felt very New Mutants, very X-Men the Animated Series, especially for a book that, let's go with pseudo features Jubilee. Like, I know she's supposed to be a main character, but I feel like she's had 6 lines of dialogue altogether.
And the other thing I gotta point out, I am gonna kind of maybe harp on Gale about this a little bit. I'm also just gonna
Gale the snail. Throw salt at her.
Marvel editorial as well. She has a baby that she was like, I will kill all of you if you don't protect this baby.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, she doesn't.
No, that baby's a dragon and it lives in Otherworld.
Well, what the fuck, dude? What were we doing? Oh man, it bums me out because
bums me out.
I don't even mind that we are where we are. I would have maybe had her blood hunt issue be why she's totally cool with what?
I didn't mean to. It's a
No.
one. There were 4 X-Men solo blood hunt issues.
Yeah.
Magic has an ongoing. Psylocke has an ongoing. Laura got an ongoing. Jubilee got Uncanny.
Yeah. Which
What
she has 6 lines.
Yeah, it's sort of like they wanted to set things up and just didn't understand it. I mean, it should have been Rogue. Evidently, this is Rogue's Uncanny.
It is.
I'm here for.
Yeah, and Gail's got her, and I was gonna come. I have a bookmark for that too because it really so much of it speaks to that thing that you said all the way back that we referenced last week about Rogue being Charles's student. She's the one, and she continues that mantle, and Gail writes her continuing that mantle. Like Gail Simone, there's a lot of stuff that Gail gets, and I do get choked up when Rogue is like, no, I'm not leaving him. Like, I don't agree with Rogue. I think she's wrong. I think Charles is a bad guy, even if he didn't kill the crew of the Agnew, and even if he was doing it for all of them. I tend to be Team Cyclops. Like this guy's just.
And I'm Team Rogue. That's so perfect for us.
Well, I don't even know that you are. I'm Team Cyclops about Xavier, but I'm Team Rogue in life. I think Rogue is brilliant. I think anybody would have to admit that she's overly sentimentalizing Charles because she did not have the same teacher that Scott had. Scott's teacher let his brother die, wiped his memory of it.
That was exactly going to be. I was going to say there's a legacy hurt.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think. That's what I think Rogue has for the Raven Darkholmes, and
yes, that's what she has for her moms.
And even in her own fashion as Rogue, I think she has that for the Lensher family.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that only because it grosses me out, but yeah,
they're the most beautiful couple of all time.
I fucking hate you.
Oh my god, Rogue belongs with Magneto, and they are my favorite couple, and they are so good together, and she makes him a better man, and he makes her a happier woman, and it's all I want.
No, it's Magneto and Charles, and that's it.
That's a good gay couple. That's a great. But everybody's poly partners in this universe.
It's true, but it's yeah. Anyway, I really do like that. Like, yeah, and again, we talked about this last week. The idea of legacy, literally, it's one of Rogue's code name. I mean, it's from an alternate universe, but it applied to Rogue, and I love that. And like, I've spent so much time worried about a Rogue secret reveal that has to do with Charles, and it kind of did happen. Well, I mean, it kind of did happen, but it was more had to do with Kurt. Charles wiping their memory, everybody's memories, including his own, on purpose about Kurt being Raven and Irene's child. I've just always worried that Rogue was going to experience that betrayal that Scott did, but she never has so far. And like, I really like that because of that, she might be a little bit naive, and she might be a little bit like, no, we're not leaving him behind. And, unfortunately, she's also kind of technically factually right, because now it turns out that he was being a good guy the whole time. I don't know. I hate Xavier shit, but I think Gail writes her really well. I'm dying to know, now that you really have put it into sharp focus, if they had somebody for a Jubilee book. And if they had a Jubilee book, and again, taking it all the way back, she's a mom with a child. And from the introduction of that child until she was like kind of cool about like, he's a dragon, we can't really change that, so I'm gonna let other people help me with dragon issues. She was the kind of mother who was like, no, literally, you can't hold him, because if he's out of my sight, I'll kill all of you. And so for her to just be like, I don't fucking know where he is, I don't know what's going on, I don't really care either. That's insane, and it's a huge loss. It's a huge drop of the ball, and there's just no reason for it. Again, like I was saying, like, give her one issue for Blood Hunt, and have her Blood Hunt. Like, she goes to Otherworld to figure out an Otherworld reason, like Otherworld solution to the vampire problem, or she goes to speak to the Sevelethi vampires about how to deal with the Blood Hunt crisis. And in doing so, she establishes why she doesn't have her son with her, and she's just fine with that. But we're 9 issues into this. Jubilee is not a super heavy presence, which is not the end of the world, but just mentioned her child a single time. And again, it just puts me in this mind of like, I don't mind that you guys moved on from Krakoa, but you set up an entire ecosystem, and every time a piece of it is on somebody's clothing, you are like, oh, just ignore that. Brush it off of you. It doesn't matter. And it just, I don't know. It's a bummer to me.
So I can't help but express it as a dance move.
Yes.
An asterisk on that, because I really want to come back to that.
Yeah.
Right. When we're talking about Black Knight and oh my God, I couldn't even talk to Kevo about it, who has read nearly every appearance of Black Knight that isn't an Avengers issue.
Wait, Kevo has?
Yes.
Come on, get on here, you little what?
Yeah.
Why?
Back in the olden days when we were still just a podcast.
You were just like, I'm gonna be the Black Knight guy. What happened? What are we doing?
He was my Captain Britain guy.
Okay.
And Black Knight and Captain Britain have 60 issues together, and then Black Knight joins New Excalibur, and they have a bunch of miniseries together.
I remember that.
And so I asked Kevo to fill in some gaps for himself, and then every time Black Knight had a new title come out, Kevo just covered it with me because he had already read like 300 issues of Dane and Percy.
Did you guys do all the Jackie Chopra stuff?
Yeah.
That's what he's referring to,
Yeah, we... he's read a lot.
I'm going to be very defensive the day we see her on our screens in the MCU, and anyone's like, ugh, I'm going to be like, nuh-uh.
I mean, my love, we have lost Kit Harington. I don't think we're ever seeing Jackie Chopra.
I think that's the thing, though. We're more likely to see Jackie Chopra than Kit Harington again.
Yeah.
Kit just wants to get paid, though, so we'll see.
I feel so bad. Her name is escaping me. Nick Jonas is incredibly talented and accomplished.
Priyanka Chopra.
Thank you, Priyanka. Chopra. She would be an incredible choice.
Yes. Also, Priyanka.
Oh my God, just Priyanka, straight up Priyanka. And I would cast Lemon as anything. Anything.
I'm trying to think who you would have as like, she'd be a really funny Dagger.
Dazzler. Lemon is Dazzler.
No, Dagger, not Dazzler.
He knows what he said.
I heard you.
Lemon would be an amazing That's exactly Dazzler as a drag queen who is talented.
Yes.
Not successful musically because drag queens don't get, A-list music success. That actually is an amazing pitch. I'm sold. We're going to write that. Marvel.
I want Lucy LaDuca as Dazzler.
Oh God.
I'm glad you thought to mention me. So
her powers would work so well with the shrillness of her own voice.
Get loose.
This was an issue that had Black Knight in it.
We'll get back to it. What were we saying before that I was gonna? So one of the things that I really loved, this reminded me of that issue of New Mutants where they go to the mall. It reminded me of the Mika We Are Golden vibes that I get from reading classic BKV Runaways.
I mean, it really did. The first thing I thought was first issue of the first episode of the animated series at the mall.
Yeah,
Jubilee.
I gave this particular issue's art an A. This is what I want books to look like all the time inside. Oh my God, to have pencils like this on every issue I write. Oh my God, I understand why this can't be widescreen books. For widescreen books, you get Stuart Immonen and you redefine brilliant. You know what I mean? But gosh, I love this for an any issue story. This art is
this did kind of. I really liked it as well, and it really had a. For as much as I love it, and I really do, this isn't a critique of the art, but McKelvey's art never feels organic.
McKelvey's art always feels like it's from a slightly parallel universe to ours.
Yeah, it feels iconographic at all times. It feels
always kind of uncanny. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like every panel is kind of a Liechtenstein moment, which is not a bad thing. This is not a critique, but there is a thing where it's like sometimes the fluidity of comics and your mental ability to make the motion happen and animate it as you read it and feel the flow of the story. With McKelvey, it's like you're actually walking through a statuary. And
I love that.
All like the motion just is not quite the same because it's every panel is an iconographic moment that you have to stop and stare at, and you don't necessarily flow. Andre Bresson, has a very, in a lot of ways to me, very similar aesthetic to McKelvey, but with that organicness woven into it in such a way that the movement feels like it's there. It feels a little less statuesque, meaning that there are times where a piece of art is not special. You're just seeing what's happening on that panel and your eyes kind of register the information and move on. Whereas McKelvey, literally every panel is special. Like I don't want to ever make this because I just love him so much. It's the same thing with like Frank Quitely, where it's like sometimes I will not think he's appropriate for a thing, but I never would want it to sound like I'm critiquing Quitely.
I feel like Brian Hitch, every single panel in the interiors is a cover.
Yes.
And yet I feel like Chris Bacalo, sometimes you will look at a single panel and think to yourself, I don't even understand how that is Spider-Man looking at Wolverine. Yeah. What are you talking about? That is two puddles arguing. Yeah. And like when you put it on the page, you're like, oh my God, it's the single most beautiful page I've ever seen in my life. And I feel like McKelvey is a Hitch and Bresson is expressing Bacalo.
Yeah. Lev Grossman, author of The Magicians, his brother wrote a book called Soon I Will Be Invincible that is it's a novel about superheroes. And kind of in the same way that Magicians plays with magician trope and like wizard school tropes, Soon I Will Be Invincible plays with superhero tropes. And they eventually released a version of it where Brian Hitch did the cover. And it's dozens of characters, and they're all Supermans and Spider-Mans and Batman. Like it's a send up of everybody. But Brian Hitch did the cover, and it was the first time any of the characters mentioned had been drawn. And he literally creates visuals for every single one of them. Wow. And it's such a great cover for this novel, like not a comic book. It's just a novel, and he doesn't do anything else but this cover. And I still love to look at it just because it's an amazing reference for all the characters. But yeah, sometimes you get like an Ultimates and you're like, like it's a tough read, but damn, was that cover amazing. But yeah, you know, this was some really good art, and this was a really fun issue. I maybe kind of wish the only thing is that they had not done this cover. I wish the cover had been more focused on like Kids Day Out. And then we got the surprise of the fact that we're actually getting a Sentinels at the Mall issue.
Can I actually ask you the one other thing though? Molly Hayes syndrome. I'm an adult man who will literally come up to my husband naked save for a red shirt and go, look, I'm a Pooh Bear. And like, I think that's adorable, and I think it's funny, and I think it's great because I'm a human being and I'm expressing a part of myself. And then there are other times I will sit here and I will literally get into an argument about how The Dead is actually a cohesive single piece of work. And I think if you think otherwise, you've actually never read Dubliners properly. And Joyce, I will literally scream on a fire that Joyce is a genius and you're all missing it. Same for Ibsen. If you come for A Doll's House, you've literally never read stage work ever. So whole point of this, I can be both silly and faux intellectual elevated. A character like Death Dream, who I think is so worth investigating and seeing have an extraordinary future in the Marvel Universe, she gives all the Pooh Bear in a red shirt and doesn't have the opportunity to give the depth and complexity of appreciating things like Ibsen and Joyce. And I purposely chose two such extreme things because I do believe her being like, what's Simamon? The whole issue challenged my ability to think she's a believable adult. And so I think that Death Dream presents Gale operating at her ability to create long-lasting, exciting characters. But I think the dialogue is challenged, and I really did purposely use such an extreme example as Dubliners, because like, yeah, it's one of my favorite novels of all time, no question. But like, it's ridiculous to bring up, as is it is ridiculous for this young woman to say cinnamon 3 times in 8 pages.
So a couple things, dude. Hatara's a dude.
What?
Death Dream is a dude.
Oh my gosh! Thank you.
Yeah. I had the same reaction and debated chalking it up to his being Japanese and English not being his first language.
Which I'm even fine with, but it's the Molly Hayes syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I even have gone back and thought of it as the Franklin Richards syndrome, because one of my like most cognizant introductions to Franklin is when Onslaught has kidnapped him. And he's kind of doing baby talk with Nathan inside of Onslaught's chest. But he's like an 8-year-old. And he keep calling him Uncle Ben. And I'm like, you're the son of Reed Richards. I think you probably were born speaking at an 8th grade reading level. It's cobbering time. Like he's not 3 no matter what. And sometimes it just, again, it's that like company man syndrome where it's like, have you just been locked in a vault where you don't know what certain things are? And I love Gale, but she's a company man. She's really in there. I don't really quite know what they were thinking. And it is that sort of like twee. I don't know. I would, and I say twee, but it's tender queer. I don't know what it is, but it's like, I wish Death Dream were a little more Zooey Deschanel, and shit's fucked up when I say that. Least favorite person in the world, Zooey Deschanel. But I wish we were talking about like more that kind of quirky and less like baby talk, less cinnamon. Because I think that's the point, is like,
you root for lawyers for the WWE more than you root for Zooey Deschanel.
It's true. I really, really don't like her, but I Death Dream as Manic Pixie Death Boy rather than me baby. Especially because the other 3 are like all having sexual experiences with each other.
And that's why I went to Molly, because
everybody else in the group
is fucking knocking it, and
everybody else in the Runaways are horny for each other. And the thing is, like, Molly at time, and this is also an X-Men thing, because again, this could be a Knoll syndrome as well, where sometimes a Knoll is 11 and sometimes a Knoll works at a gay bar, and sometimes Molly is like, I just had my first period. And sometimes it's like, Runaways has been around for almost 20 years. Molly's probably close to at least considering being sexually active, which I don't want to talk about necessarily, but stop writing her like she's baby. Unless you're going to do it as like, hey, I'm one of you guys, but because I'm the youngest, I like when you treat me like little sister, like a little bit. That's her Pooh Bear. Like, that's her, but you got to acknowledge it. You got to find a way to be like, I'm actually an adult. I'm actually older, but I want you to treat me like I'm cute in this moment.
If I could weirdly liken it to something that Nico and I just finished, Claudia on Party of 5 starts as me.
She's baby.
Baby. Yeah. And so that's something that it could have been a lot more awkward to transition into. But like many things about Party of 5, I had no idea that by the end of the show, Claudia would be sexually active. And yes, in fact, she is. And I feel like they handled it in a very good way. And I, as you guys were talking about it, I thought it was so funny the way you were saying, it's uncomfortable to try and talk about this. it's awful that they're making you feel that way, and it raises this question of what age is she, what level is she supposed to be, and like you said, it has been like 20 years since some of this stuff has been around.
Runaway started, I think, in 2001. It's been almost 25.
I mean, Claudia is such a good example because at no point is it titillating.
And she was always so small, too.
Yeah,
so you had to keep that in mind.
It is supposed to be a little bit sexy when Bailey and Julia have sexual encounters and have attraction. Like, you know, Bailey and
I love every time that Bailey and Julia have a sexual.
Fuck out of here. When Bailey and Sarah are,
I hated that arc. It was worst.
When Scott Wolf and Jennifer
with
Love
Sarah
are on screen.
Yep.
You are supposed to, it's supposed to be a little bit sexy, like even though technically they are when they meet they're not adults, but the actors are adults, so we kind of let it slide. And it's the same thing with the cast of 90210. There is supposed to be something titillating about it, but specifically with Claudia, she starts so young and grows into it in such a way that the point is, like, one of the struggles this family faces is the fact that literally we all grow up, and at some point that means, like, we're going to have to acknowledge that this is a person that has now become sexually active or sexually curious, and we can find a way to honor the truth of that without turning it into sexual entertainment. And comics don't always find the way to do that because you introduce these characters in 2001 when they are not sexually active and shouldn't be. And then at some point somebody goes, it's been a while, she's probably at least a couple of years older. Okay, so she was 13 and now she's 15. That's where you start to be a kid that's going to be a little more curious. And then another writer comes in and goes, well, I'm taking them back to their roots, and now she's 12. And somebody comes 5 years after that and goes, okay, it's been a while, now it's time to do something else. And so you have this kind of back and forth bounce that happens, and we see it happen with the new Kid X-Men team so often. Again, Anole is my example because so many of his peers grew up in a basically straight line trajectory. Another great example is Pixie. She's baby, sometimes she's a fucking helmet on when it starts, and then Greg Land draws her as like the horniest slut from Whoretown. And then we get to Legion of X and it's kind of like somewhere in between. And so my worry about Death Dream is like he'll stay on for a while, and 5 years from now he'll be like, yeah, I fucked one of the Ghost Rider spirits to death. And then 2 years after that, somebody's going to come on and be like, no, he's actually 8 years old and has been the whole time.
He's staying up past his bedtime.
Yeah, like, I don't know. What are we going to do with this? Okay.
You need to figure out the line. Yeah.
Gosh, what a moment. So I give Uncanny on the whole a B.
Yeah, it's about a B. I'm excited to see how it ends. Like, I want to see how they get out of this mall situation.
I hope this Uncanny is the flagship title, doing all this catch up. A lot has not made me happy. A lot has made me okay. But the promise of what this Uncanny could be has me excited. And I generally think that Gail has paid her dues. And Gail is an old soul in this industry who, I don't know, like, when I came back into comics, it was right around Here Comes Tomorrow. And at that point, we were referring to Peter David as a guy who knew where the bodies were buried because he'd been working at DC since 85. And that was like 2004. And like Gail Simone has been working in comics since like 1990, which frankly, in 2025, your comic career at 40 years in 1990 is now 55 years in 2025. People are writing longer. They are being seen as vital longer because they should be, because they are. It's not just one thing. Wizard magazine telling us what to think. The internet and, social media allows us to keep in touch with these creators. I think Gail Simone has the potential to be heir apparent to the X fortune.
I think you're right. I would really like to see Gale as more of a matriarchal I would like to see Gale in Tom Brevoort's role. And I would like to see her as more of a matriarchal I would be a lot happier if big editors were kind of names for their writing, and every once in a while dove into, I would have loved if
yes,
I'm not Tom Brevoort, but Gale was editing a lot of this line and writing this crossover, writing the 2 issues of the annual crossover. But I would like to see somebody like Gail Simone shepherding, and young writers and I want to make sure I get her name right, because she's kind of exactly who I'm talking about.
Well, you say whoever you're thinking of. I just want to say Erica Schultz, Queen of My Heart. Laura Kinney Wolverine.
Ashley Allen.
From Magic.
Who's writing Magic. And
yeah.
So book at Marvel was a Magic book.
Brilliant.
And then she got this full series. She's literally, she has other credits, but at Marvel, what she's writing now is basically her second credit. So I want people like that writing, and I want Gail Simone's shepherding those people and writing maybe big high concept crossovers every now and then, but really somebody who has a lot of experience with the moving parts. And I guess, technically Tom Brevoort, I don't know. I'm so disappointed with how he's been. I'm like, fire him and give Gail Simone his job.
I do also miss when brilliant writers were also brilliant editors. And I don't mean to say that you can't be a brilliant editor without being a writer, but one of the things that we don't always remember is that the line editor does kind of shape the face of the books. And I know they're getting it from Up on High. I know they're getting it from, secret back rooms, but I would like to see a little bit more given to visionary voices. Head of X is not a real job, but if somebody could be shepherding that line, if Gail Simone weren't editor, but she were head of X, that would make sense. If she were white head of X of the Crown, it would, befit her station.
Yes. Yep.
For those of you who don't know, one of the most legendary and defining runs at Marvel of all time that would go on to change the face of every character in that title and their villains, their friends. Chris Claremont, of course, is underappreciated for what he did for the Fantastic fucking Four, you morons. And that jabroni gave us Valeria. So all of you say thank you. And, I used that as again, people don't appreciate what he did. But no, he did a great run with Salvador LaRocca. It was actually because he had agreed to come back to Marvel after jumping ship and then doing some really cool stuff at DC. And then when he came back to Marvel, they had just given Alan Davis the 2X books, and it felt shitty to kick him off. So Claremont said, give me other work. And he did that great 6 issues on Wolverine with Lionel Francis Yu. It's amazing. Go check it out. And then he did for the Lionel Francis Yu art. And then he did that great Fantastic Four run and all of his partner minis. True Friends. He did a Phoenix mini. But anyway, he did a famous Fantastic Four run. So there's a long line of amazing X creators going over to Fantastic Four, like John Byrne, Chris Claremont, and more. Ryan North's run on Fantastic Four feels less like Ryan North's beautiful defining statement on the Fantastic Four and what it could be. Like somebody like John Hickman was given the room to express, and more like this brilliant mind who we have seen change the way we think about superhero books with Squirrel Girl. This brilliant mind is being, hey, it's Andrew. Thank you. We are the world's sexiest podcasters. What is up? is being put in this position where I feel like everything about this Fantastic Four title is a response and is evidently a multi-pronged planned response, because look at how far back Blood Hunt was, issues 21 and 22, and they were both referenced multiple times in today's Fantastic Four 28, what is it, One World Under Doom prologue. One of the best worst issues I've ever read.
Was this part of your catch up?
Yes.
Okay. So I took a different approach for this one and decided not to catch up. I am going to go back now, but I did want to pick this issue up, having not I think we read we covered like the first 5, I want to say.
We covered the first 5, and then I think you mentioned some of the Blood Hunt tie-ins. I don't know if you'd read them or if you just acknowledged them on air, but you were how I knew there were Fantastic Four Blood Hunt tie-ins.
Yeah, I think I acknowledged them on air, but I don't believe I read them. And so I decided I wanted to read this today and see how that was, especially because I'm almost always doing it for DC, and we have one of those coming up when we move.
I read that
DC.
whole series today. Let me tell you, rereading 17. What a great issue!
Yeah. So we have another one of those. But I like taking this position of, I like being able to tell you guys, like, this was a good place to pick it up if you haven't read it. And I will say, all things considered, this was adept at starting over. And actually, again, I want to slap Marvel editorial and above rather than the writer on this one, because DC does tell you a lot of the time, great jumping on point here. And sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes that is not correct.
Man, a number 1 means nothing at DC.
And a number 17 could mean anything. Because they're not constantly restarting their books, they do have to sometimes tell you, hey, we know this is issue 49, and that's not even like a 5 or a 0, but this is a good place to jump on. Like the new writers coming on here. This
Come
is a
get
great
gay
place.
with it.
Yeah, this is a great place to start. And like I said, we're going to talk about Power Girl number 17, which they kind of try and indicate as a jump on point. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We're going to get there. But Marvel doesn't advertise like Marvel doesn't market like that. Marvel doesn't talk like that. And maybe they should, because this Fantastic Four run has been going longer than most Marvel runs get in this day and age. Off the top of my head, I can think of very few books that get over 24 issues.
In fact, I just want to say that anybody that goes to tell me that Uncanny, oh my god, I almost said Uncanny Spider-Man, please forgive me, that was
amazing.
Just 5 fun issues.
Yeah.
That Amazing Spider-Man is on issue 60 whatever. No, they've made it very clear that this is a new volume.
Yeah, I was gonna say this restarted when Joe Kelly took over, which is
my
annoying.
favorite part of the run so far. But
yeah, which is annoying only because this was meant to not be that many. This was meant to be 8 more issues, and then they were gonna restart it, and now it is those 8 issues plus a bunch of add-ins. So it's Spider-Man 65 point death, which and then they are restarting the book with Joe Kelly writing it. So I don't know, just it's weird and a little bit sloppy. And so Amazing Spider-Man, Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel, Ben Percy had a few books, but most stuff doesn't make it that far. So for Fantastic Four to do so, already impressive. Ryan North, great writer, great guy. Not really somebody I thought we were giving events to. Don't mind it, but not what I thought. And I didn't realize that Ryan North was a Jed McKay to them.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Marvel used to do status quos, not events?
Yeah.
Is he getting an event or is he getting a status quo?
I don't think you can have something like One World Under Doom and it be a status quo. I think
it's influence, not the binding moment.
I guess we will see. I mean, I really I wouldn't mind it, but especially with Doom, they seem really afraid to let it go beyond a summer. I'm thinking of things like Secret Wars, And then, Doom was just completely hamstrung from there, and we didn't really change the status quo. So I don't really know, but this is issue 28, and it's a great jumping on point. It is, if you have not been reading Fantastic Four, I know a bunch of stuff that was the storyline they were starting with in issue 1 that they were moving for that, and I don't know how any of that resolves. And it does not matter at issue 28. So Ryan North has been writing this for over 2 years, and a bunch of the stuff that he wrote he is panned out however it panned out, and it's not weighing down this storyline. This storyline basically starts with them going, hey, we know Doom took over as Sorcerer Supreme. What the fuck are we going to do about it? And that's where we start, which is a great place to start.
The thing that, because I do give this a pretty high grade. I give this issue mostly, I think, a B+.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I think the only problem I had was when Dane Whitman stumbled into the scene and like Claire on Lost went, "My squirrel baby," about the ebony blade and turning it into a big chair that makes him psychic. I understand literally nothing about this. This shits on so much development for Dane, and like I understand that now it's the sorcery he was doing was Doom sorcery, which actually was my guess that like this was somehow Doom inspired. I thought he was just gonna be like, no, I worship Doom. Look at how he made the sword better. And like I thought it would just be like a different like thing, but I hated the conceit. Once I gave into the conceit and believed in it, it was fine, but I hated what they did to Dane, an already unusually pathetic character.
I was intrigued by the idea of the Ebony Siege and the idea that he, melted down his tools and turned them into something else. I don't really get it. I'm intrigued by the idea. I don't know that telling me that it happened in an issue of Fantastic Four is the right way to...
But it's only a tool for Fantastic Four, so why would they tell it in Black Knight?
Well, because they should, if they're gonna do this, they should do this. Otherwise, you didn't need any of that context. You didn't need to say that he had these tools and he turned them into a throne. Like, that doesn't matter. Sue says we should go talk to Dane Whitman because he's a scientist who does magic, and you're a scientist who does magic. That's perfectly great. That's a great idea.
How perfectly they've handled it.
Yeah. That's
issue
a brilliant
alone.
Reason to bring him into it.
Yes,
and for him to show up and help them also makes total sense. For him to be like, I have a spell, we can go back in time and find this thing. All that total sense. The big thing is they basically tell you, hey, there's this crazy Dane Whitman story that happened that nobody ever wrote, that we're just giving you the summary for in 3 pages, like 1/3 of the way into this issue. And it bums me out because the last time I saw somebody named Black Knight, it was his daughter, Jackie Chopra, in the pages of Legion of X. Mm-hmm. Was that what it ended up being called at the end?
Or I think so.
Was there one more after that?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, what was started
must
as
have
Way of
avian cancer. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, because I know Leah Williams' or Teenie Howard's books. It was Excalibur, and then it was Knights of X, and so anyway, Way of X turned into Legion of X and then maybe stayed there. But Jackie Chopra showed up. There was a Black Knight and the X-Men thing where both she and Dane were there. And there was a big, Jackie Chopra's a mutant. And so there was a big thing of like, she's Black Knight and a mutant. And her dad is kind of like, hey, I'm probably letting the mantle go and giving it to you. And then something probably happened in their lives that we don't know about. And now he's Black Knight again. And he turned all of the ebony accoutrement into the Ebony Siege, which I think is a cool idea, but that's a mini or a one shot.
I choose to believe she has an ebony ring made from like one slip of it, and it gives her all the powers because it's the connection to the magic, not the amount of the weapon.
I love it, but like, again, pay Nico right now to write that story, because otherwise I can't have her show up and be like, yeah, I got this ring. Don't ask how or why between the last time you saw me and now this thing happened. And similarly, like Dane shows up and he's like, yeah, I got this throne. Just believe me. And then, yeah, Doom shenanigans happen as they are wont to do. And this was fine. This is fun. The House of Ideas has so many ideas and nowhere to put them and no idea what to do with them. And this is just such a reminder. Like, I think I have liked Black Knight since he was in a bomber jacket in the 90s. And Dane and Cersei, banger duo.
Cersei in a matching bomber jacket.
Yeah, exactly. The two of them just rolling.
Do you know how many fucking bomber jackets I have had over the years? Because the 90s Avengers look so cool. Oh, and also a super stylized Carmen Sandiego in a bomber jacket. I mean, where in the world couldn't she go?
Come the fuck on. So yeah, I mean, like, this is a cool character. This is a legacy character. This is a character with great connections to a bunch of stuff. I don't do something with it before you bring him in and just have him be a tool.
And as Hedwig von Doom said in the famous film Hedwig and the Angry Mask, fuck you, I'm going to Latveria. So I really do think that one of the things that we are seeing, and I am purposely being kind of silly with that, is like the giant queenification of Doom, where he's like, no, girl, I planned this whole thing. Trapped you, tricked you, mama. No, Sue.
Thank you for reminding me.
I got you, Sue. Sue, I got you.
Hold on, I got to get my next Blue Sky post ready because I clipped the best panel in that entire issue.
Whole fucking reveal was the queerest thing I've ever read.
I am putting this up on Blue Sky as soon as we're done. It is the panel where Doom goes, incredible. The Fantastic Four are truly useless.
It is the gayest thing I have literally ever seen.
Yeah, he's such
gayest
he's so cunty. He's so he's a big old queen.
It is
it's funny because, you know, if you do watch enough Drag Race and you do see enough drag queens and you do see enough like high energy, sinister queer men, you do realize that like you understand where they were going with Doom in 1960.
Yes.
But at some point somebody didn't realize that like we don't make people like this anymore. It's not impressive when a straight guy behaves like this, but this is all like I mean, you know, I just always go back to the Queen, and most people know this from Aja doing the performance of Crystal LaBeija on All Stars, but like just Crystal LaBeija going, her makeup is terrible. That's a Doom line. Like Doom just being like, the Fantastic Four are useless. Doom is no longer like, he's not a Shakespearean monologuer anymore because we don't buy that as a villain. But if you made him a chaotic, polysexual, like he's just literally trying to fuck the world because that's how he asserts dominance, and he wants it all. Like
he sounds a little bit more like the 1994 unreleased Fantastic Four version of Doctor Doom, where he had a lot of sassy one-liners. I'm loving that.
Yeah, I love it too. I certainly am not looking for a Julian McMahon. And I forget who played him in the did they have a Doom in?
They did. He
Who
was
was it?
some hot guy who I'll look it up.
Well,
Yeah.
Also, while you're doing that, I just want to say, Bradford, thank you so much for joining us. We were talking so much about how we love Jackie Chopra earlier, but I specifically love you reminding us of how incredible Faiza was.
Yes.
Faiza
Yep.
Hussein, from the pages of Captain Britain and MI13, one of the greatest books that Marvel ever published in my eyes. Leonard Kirk's art on that book. Paul Cornell's writing, that's the peak of his writing. The guy did several episodes of Doctor Who, and I really think Captain Britain and MI13 and his follow-up single issues, I think he did Sword of the Braddocks, and I think he did a Spitfire one-shot. He really created a beautiful body of work, and I wish that Marvel would have the intelligence to see the market. And not that they lack intelligence, but the specific intelligence to see the market that are clamoring for that, his wisdom, his Spitfire one shot, all in a beautiful tone.
Well, and they're all Krakoa brought back everybody. It brought back Strike, it brought back Faiza. And all of that could have kept going in from the that didn't require Krakoa.
Yeah, Krakoa going away doesn't mean that everybody who was resurrected is dead. What is this, Marauders?
So, the fact that we don't have Albedo Gas, Xanth, and Rubedo, that we don't have Jackie Chopra, that we don't have Pete Wisdom, I would have done all those books before I would have done a good, Captain Britain and MI13 over X-Force.
Oh my god, I'm going to do Captain Britain in the US 13, where he's forced to take on a ragtag team of 13 American mutants.
Yeah.
I'm dead.
Bradford, especially because they come from the Otherworld side of Marvel. Exactly. Otherworld is, I don't know, Otherworld is so good. And I actually am surprised they're not developing Otherworld more now, because it's a really good hub to do all this multiverse stuff.
And to have magic and mutants and superheroes and science come together in a way that isn't 60s silly.
Yeah. It's a bummer. I don't know. Maybe this will be part of another phase once we just truly accept that From the Ashes is not the rare and success that they thought it was. But in the meantime, this is wild. Today is our first day talking about One World Under Doom, and we're not going to do it every week, but we will be checking up with this pretty regularly until we know if what we're looking at is a new status quo.
I agree. It's something that I'm really excited about. It's part of why I've been doing this catch-up project. But one of the things that I want to say that kind of transitions us over.
Yeah. We both said B+ for this. It was really good.
So about it.
Good start to this. And again, guys, the big thing is, if you haven't been reading Fantastic Four, if you didn't read Blood Hunt, this is a good thing to read. Start here. The other thing that came out today is Dr. Doom and Rocket Raccoon, which it was fine. It was whatever. If you want to, I would not say you need to pay for it and add it to your pile, to your stock, but you might get a chuckle or two out of it in 3 months when it's on unlimited.
Why are they? Have you read JMS's Captain America?
Yeah.
Just give the man a fucking crossover, because you're wasting him on titles where nothing happens, and this is the height of nothing happens.
No.
I will spend the rest of my life thinking that maybe the best years at Marvel are New X-Men and JMS's Amazing Spider-Man running concurrently. But whatever. And I'll throw in Joe Casey's Uncanny and Extreme X-Men for good measure, because
what's Joe Casey about to be on?
Oh shit. Weapon X-Men.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, which is going to be Cable, Deadpool, Wolverine, Proudstar, or Thunderbird. I can't remember which of those two amazing characters who I feel like we're not allowed to have both at the same time. For some reason.
No, it's Thunderbird.
There you go. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
it's wild, I swear. But part of why I really love thinking about the possibilities of One World Under Doom is because it reminds me of what I really loved about coming into Marvel and my excitement for that era. And I've had a secret project that I've wanted to ask you about. And like, I'm not putting you on the spot on air. Please actually think about it. But I would love to do like the DC and Marvel crossovers from like the same ish years. So like at DC, I think it's House of M and Infinite Crisis.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun.
It'd be so cool, and like
Yeah.
to do like the whole project and really like get our realistic opinions on House of M, this
Yeah.
multiversity level book, pre-multiversity. Something
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed as I've gotten more into DC is I've come to realize that so much about DC is expressing a status quo that you're familiar with, even if it's not what you know personally. And that's something that Marvel needs to embrace better. I read all of the Wolverine minis, as I mentioned earlier. So I made sure that I'd read all of Savage Wolverine 1 through 8, Infinity Comic. And I actually also made sure I read all of Wolverine Deep Cut, all 4 issues. And I think Claremont's vision for inserting issues into his own back catalog is going to be thought of a lot better in the future, the way Marv Wolfman and George Perez's work is at DC, where they're always coming up with the arc of Teen Titans you didn't know existed, the same way many brilliant writers are coming up with the arc of Batman you didn't know existed. In fact, Grant Morrison, who would go on to define the modern idea of Batman, his first Batman work was a Batman story you didn't know existed. So the ways that that makes me think about things like DC horror, where none of it exists. I did read all 8 stories. It's 4 issues, 8 stories. There are some flashy gets here. I think it's Patton Oswalt, and I unfortunately forget his writing partner on the issue. He does a story. Jordan Bloom, I believe. The Boulet brothers did a Wonder Woman story. Some zombie story. It's called in the first issue. The covers are beautiful, but I found myself frustrated by how, for me, it is wasted potential when the stories could be set in canon so the horror could apply to the real character, and how like the end of the Batman Abby Arcane story is the universe ends basically. And so no, I really liked these, but the fact that none of them mattered, like the Scarface one takes place in a world where the DC universe takes place, like I don't know, I liked it a lot, but I think I have to walk away giving the whole book a C, except for the covers, which I give an A-.
I'm gonna go more B minus. I think the big thing is these should have been weekly in October.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, as February birthday boys, I know that we know what it's like to have a whole lot of horror movies released around our birthday, because February is the dumping ground for all cinema. But I'm used to end of winter horror, but like this was wasted here. I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, if it's all separate team, like, you know, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like push the artists to release a book, you know, push everybody to get. But honestly, technically, you can if you tell them a year in advance. Hey, we need these scripts for October next year. You can have an artist do a weekly, but this was all different. I mean, I get that it's difficult for editorial too. I don't want to. It is difficult to release a book a week. The same book every week, but this is an anthology series. You're gathering writers who only have to do an 8-page story. Let's say some of them were a little longer, some of them were a little shorter. But you know, that's for artists, it's feasible it's just one. So like it's feasible. And then you have to compile them all and print it. But like this could have just been a Halloween series. In which case, like, you know, I don't know, it's not going to make the writing any better, but it makes the vibe right, which can just make you a little more forgiving. The hallmark of this DC experience, Nico, is that ultimately so much of the stuff is not in continuity and doesn't.
Yes, it's a curse, isn't it?
And it genuinely isn't clear a lot of the time what is in continuity and what isn't. Gotham by Gaslight is not. Green Lantern Dark is not. Batman the Dark Age, Batman Dark Pattern. No, Dark Pattern was this. Batman. I mean, I don't know. The Boy Wonder. I'm really not clear on.
Oh God, what's the Batman and Robin year one thing that we're reading by Mark Waid right now? Yeah,
Yep.
No, my God, you're right. You're right. I'm remembering books you're talking about.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I think Jenny Sparks isn't.
I think technically Zatanna is no. I think Jenny
no,
Sparks. I think we thought Jenny Sparks wasn't because of the Atom, but now I think he might be because of the Atom project.
But you are right that Zatanna is not. So it's just a little bit all over the place, and this is kind of DC's cross to bear. It's both a feature and a bug, because from what I mean, I'm still so new to this. I haven't had this happen yet, but from what I gather, in like 10 years, they will reference some of these stories as though they were continuity. And
oh my God, Killing Joke. That's the one. That's the one that everybody just sort of goes.
So, I didn't really care that these weren't in continuity. Like, yeah, that Batman story does end with essentially the world has been taken over by tree growth and there's nothing Batman can do about it, which clearly is not happening in the same world that All In is happening in. But, I don't, at this point, I'm okay with it. These were great. They were ooky and spooky and kooky, and they were a lot of different horror genres.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's fun. That's really fun. Play around with it. Have some fun with it. I think maybe next time let's tighten up. Let's keep this all in October.
Because Creature Commandos is still going, and isn't there one more? I think
so. And Creature Commandos, they say DC Horror Presents, which I get it. Like Frankenstein horror, blah blah blah. I get it, but also it's Creature Commandos, and you're doing a show called Creature Commandos. You probably didn't need to put the DC horror label on it. It's also just Suicide Squad with ooky spooky kooky creatures. And
yes,
like it's just that. So I
like to imagine that Batman silhouette in Creature Commandos is somehow still Kevin Conroy.
Sold. Yes. Yes. So I don't. You DC, go to church, pray on it. What do you want DC Horror Presents to be? Because there's a lot of things that it can be, but like DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos when Creature Commandos is coming out already, and it's your flagship series for your new version of the universe. That also now James Gunn is saying that Suicide Squad is an imperfect memory.
An imperfect memory, and only Creature Commandos is canon.
You sound like you're on a witness stand trying to say that you don't recall. Anyway,
cartoon is canon, but the movie is an imperfect memory.
Imperfect memory. Yep. Okay. Whatevs. Sure. I get it. Figure it out. Marvel's got their crosses to bear too. So,
his brother is Kirk. What can we expect?
This was fun, but yeah, it's not going to change the world.
Okay.
Supergirl.
No, not Supergirl.
Oh, Power Girl. Sorry. Yeah.
But
sorry.
she is Supergirl.
I know.
Okay. I want to start with when I read number 17, and it was the first thing I read. Yeah. I gave it like a C-, maybe a D. I hated this. I could not understand what was happening. Nobody gets named. I couldn't figure out who anybody was.
You sent it to the group chat, and you said, "Hey, we'll do this week. This is a new." Yeah, you sent it to our planning chat, and you said, "We'll do this week. This is a new jumping on point for the character." And I said, "That sounds great." And I had the exact same experience that you had.
But then I went back and I read Power Girl Special #1, her stories in Night Terrors Action Comics #1 and 2, and then Power Girl 1 through 16. And I found that when I read those additional 19 issues, this issue was like a B+. Paige, that's Power Girl's current identity. She's a great character. She's got hopes, dreams, and aspirations. She struggles with feeling like because she is from the Earth 1, Earth 2 system of crises, she's from the other Earth, her Krypton. She feels like she is a stranger to these Kryptonians. So she is a stranger to a world full of strangers. And she feels so excluded and lost. But her best friend, Lilith, or Omen, the super cool redhead in this issue, is her BFF, her ride or die, and is an amazing character, well developed, fully fleshed out, and well thought. Axel represents a interesting new modern kind of love interest for her. I'm excited about where that might go. I generally just really like this book, and I do think that 17 is a terrible example of what this book could be. But one of the things I love about Tom King's Wonder Woman is that it is an exploration of what it means to be powerful and a woman in the DC universe, but it maybe does it with a dark tinge. If you were to read the Power Girl book from the beginning, it does it with a really positive, warm vibe. It's actually a lot of fun. It's the special, the two Night Girls Terrors book, Night Girls, gotta go. The two Night Terrors books, which feature Power Girl and Lilith, both kind of setting up the story that will be the ongoing, and then the ongoing runs through issue 17 so far. I don't think I can really recommend 17 as a jumping on point. It's a little confusing. It's a little tough. I don't know why the cover says new costume, new adventure, new mission. It's like inviting you to think this is a good start. It's not. It's a great series, though. So I do feel like the promise of this cover delivering an easily accessible kind of new book vibe. No, it's a C-. But Power Girl by Leah Williams, this book is a B+, A-. This is my favorite Leah Williams ongoing I've ever read. It is just such a fun, positive book. She even made me love Azarnian, and that's the people that Lobo are, and that seems impossible.
So yeah, I mean, I did not do what you did, because I think I was confused about the fact that I thought you had already read Power Girl, and so I thought I was doing the jump on test, but you nailed it. Like, this is not a good jumping on point, and it's actually such a bad jumping on point that that is a bit of a problem. It's even things as like, this actually could be a fantastic one, but it's missing narrative blocks that say
my literal notes.
Yeah,
yes,
they're like, you said this already, but like they don't say who any of the characters are. Literally just saying labeling each character and saying, because like when you first see and when it first says Lilith and Paige, they're
not labeled, right?
Well, not only are they not labeled, it's a wide shot, so you literally cannot see the characters in any capacity. So you literally don't know which one is Lilith and which one is Paige. And then you don't know if you figure that out pretty quickly, but then who is Lilith? Like, Lilith, friend of Paige. Who is Paige? Paige is Supergirl. Like, literally, because I thought it was Kara L, or Kara Zor-El, because I watched Supergirl with the girl from Glee. And so, like, why is she called Paige? Now I know, because I looked it up on DC Fandom. But
Kevin, what's Glee? Melissa Benoist?
Melissa Benoist.
Okay, Benoist.
But yeah, I mean, nobody is labeled. Nobody, and then it doesn't explain their relation. It would take like 6 text bubbles to make this an actual good jumping on point.
And what killed me was that Sprig got one.
Yeah, all of the villains got them.
And that was like the first one I noticed was Sprig, and then I was like, they better not give this to anyone.
Aquas.
And actually, if you go back, this follows a pattern of really cool villains for this title, and they all get
and these ones treatment. And these ones had been in it before.
Yeah,
which they also reference.
I only wish that if you read this, you would go back and not you in particular, although you would really enjoy it.
Well, now I want to. So
the
like
special in particular, the one shot that kicks this whole thing off is unbelievable, and I really recommend it to anybody who gives this issue a try and is a little confused. Having Johnny Sorrow as a villain, having John Kent as a background character, and then there's a cute little Fire and Ice Guy Gardner backup story, but it's not the Fire and Ice that you think.
Yeah, I would say don't read this issue until you go back and read some issues. This will not be a good place to start. But for me, this was the promise of like Leah Williams is on her game. Leah Williams is also really good at writing in a casual style that makes you feel like these people could be your friends. Like she just has her friends say, "Welcome home, dingus," when they're home, which is like something that I would say to my husband. Like it's she uses a kind of casual tone a lot of times that like sometimes some of the company men writers who are over the age of 50 will try and be casual, and it's very, how do you do, fellow kids? And Leah Williams writes much more like you recognizably would speak to one of your own friends. And I really appreciate that. Wild that she's doing this book with David Baldeón, because they have done work together in the past for Marvel that I found quite beautiful and awesome. So yeah, I mean, really good art. Paige and Axel have some really great chemistry. That's a great example of like that they didn't need to explain. Because as soon as you see what their interaction, you get it. Like you get that he has bi-wife energy and that they have really good chemistry, and David Baldeón draws them very playfully sexy and fun, and it's just great. But like friends, you maybe need a little bit more. So anyway, I'm excited to go back and read this. I recommend come with me on that journey, fellow reader and watcher. Like, let's all go back and read it together. But don't do what I did and start here. Let's all go back and read it together. And hopefully you can fall in love with this without any of the reservations that I had. But they are definitely not such bad reservations that I in any way wouldn't recommend this book. I thought it was great. It just is not a good jumping on point.
Yeah, it's why I decided to go back, because I found my experience with Gotham City Sirens really disappointing. As much as I enjoyed that title, it reminded me so much of Exterminators. Just this sort of like all-out roller derby, super awesome. Women are amazing and should be treated as action heroes in every title, and they deserve to be. Sort of miniseries romp that I knew would never directly affect canon unless it's referenced in a Tabby temporarily looked like her next wave version over at Marvel kind of way. I quickly fell in love with this iteration of Power Girl. I always just sort of thought Power Girl was the best boob window in comics. I did not know that she was one of the most worthwhile characters at DC. The idea that she feels inferior is so important, because so many of us operate under the idea that our imposter syndrome is our gasoline. If we never begin to believe that we are good enough, not believing that we are good enough will power us through everything we have to do every day. And there's this moment in one of the early issues where Power Girl gives into a moment and she reads Kara's diary. And the first line she reads is, "Power Girl is an inferior version of me." And she puts it down and she's like, well, okay, great. Everything I ever thought about myself is true. Time to die. And she's like, no, okay, I'm gonna give in and I'm gonna read it more. My worst fears are true. I might as well read more. And the next line is what Kara clearly thinks about herself. I'm sorry, is what Paige clearly thinks about herself. I wish she would see herself the way I see her, my equal, a hero, a queen, an amazing, and like, it's so important to understand that Power Girl, by being a sort of hypersexualized iteration of Supergirl and lost in that translation, you know, she's a version of Supergirl from an earlier universe and she's gone on her own path and it's been tough. And, you know, there's so much to her story that when you begin to engage with who she's become, as a feminist icon, as a sexual icon, as a comic book icon, her story is what so many of us believe we are. Because, like, I think I'm a pale imitation of some of the coolest people that came before me. And I hear where so I do a guitar song. I play guitar and sing a song or two every time before I go on air. I always sing or play a song on guitar just to make sure my voice is warmed up. And tonight's was a rather Jeff Buckley performance of Alanis Morissette's Thank You. And I hear where I'm those people and I'm doing that performance. But like I said earlier, you know, even if you're doing the Molly Hayes, you also still have that James Joyce in you. So I do think that when you're talking about a character like Power Girl, and you're talking about the way that she feels like she's a pale imitation of somebody like Kara, of somebody like the iterations of Supergirl throughout the multiverse, and then you're confronted with the fact that this is only the third volume of Power Girl ever. Third volume ever. There's a certain almost like chaos magic to this character and into the psychological view we get of her in just 19 brief issues or 20 brief issues. This is a character that I came into today thinking, yeah, she's cool and people need to leave her alone. Women are allowed to be sexy and also powerful. Just leave her alone. And I'm like walking away a humongous Power Girl fan today alone. I am so impressed by what Leah Williams has managed to accomplish in a year and a half. And I only wish every fan of any character a period of time like this, where there is so much potential for that character to grab hold.
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I'm so excited to get to know and fall in love with this character. I really liked what I saw, and I love Leah Williams. I've really missed her at Marvel. But it seems like she's getting a better deal and a much fairer shake with DC right now.
Agreed.
And which is wild because DC doesn't have enough women writing anything. Actually, I was shocked that this book was not written by Tom King.
Absolutely true.
But yeah, this is a really great.
Can you even write it DC if your name isn't Tom King or Taylor?
I don't think so. This is a great setup. I'm really excited to go back for this, and I'm excited. You know, maybe we'll like issue 20 or 21. We'll come check back in and see how it has been. You know, going back and getting to know this character, and then going forward with this new costume, new adventures.
I think what I really want to say is Leah Williams has used, I would say, 3 issues throughout her Power Girl run as kind of like filler issues. And then she goes back and makes them so powerful and so important. Like, this is going to sound so stupid, but like my favorite Scream movie is probably Scream 4 for like 1,000 reasons. And they're all like deranged, but they're how Scream 4 is the pivotal moment of the franchise that makes everybody a realized character. And yet, it's probably the worst movie in so many ways. No. And I feel that way about like 3 issues of Leah Williams' Power Girl. As an issue, it's like, I maybe don't love that that's the only issue I would have gotten that month, having read it all in one day. But like when I think about what it does for the story, I'm blown away at how she transforms the DC universe as a whole with 22 pages. I really came into today as a Leah Williams fan, but I'm walking away a Leah Williams stan, and this book is the reason. I was so impressed by how she managed to create so many filler issues that would go on to define the series, and I believe that this issue will be that. So when we check back in at 21 or 22, I think you're going to be like, wow, what a pivotal moment. What a great time to jump in. I can't believe I jumped in at that moment and I got to be ahead of this thing, because that's this title. And I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. We talked about how Uncanny is at an exciting place, but it's got some line toting to do, which I just want to say, my big problem is that I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm so embarrassed. There are too many solo series in the X universe right now, and we need more team titles. I'm so sorry, guys, but there are too many solo books right now, and we need more team titles. It's just true. And it's not because they're all women. I love that they're all women. Also Deadpool, Wolverine, and Cable. It's because you are asking me to spend a Ryan Murphy amount of time with each regular, when what I need to be spending is a Dick Wolf amount of time with each regular. On Law and Order, there are only ever 4 or 5 regulars. It's exactly as many people as you need to staff the offices, and even then, it's like kind of insane how unfair they are. 2 major recurring characters. People will be in 672 episodes of a series of Law and Order, and will never be a regular, because that's just not what Dick Wolf fucking does. He just calls his buddy Tom Fontana, who lives over at Oz, and is like, huh! But so the thing that happens with a Ryan Murphy show is there are so many regulars that you simply cannot facilitate all of them appearing in a single episode. Some of them will only be in the background of a musical number or a shootout. So you do your best and you make room for them all. And with so many titles at Marvel right now, I feel like when you're looking at the Uncanny X-Men as a title and you're looking at the bigger franchise, I feel like I'm feeling a little bit like I wish Uncanny was the more focused part of the X line, where all of these solo titles are asking me to distract from characters that I need to see more of. And because there are 11 regulars in each team title, they are getting Ryan Murphy levels of attention. And it's kind of weird that Nova is getting Dick Wolf levels of attention in Phoenix. As much as I love Phoenix, and it's one of my favorite titles right now, giving Dick Wolf levels of attention in the Phoenix book, where Jubilee is getting Ryan Murphy levels of attention in the Uncanny title, has me sort of thrown the fuck off.
And the thing that I've been saying for so long, I think really since the show started, and I'm not talking about the Unlimited comics, I'm talking about an actual print issue. Guys,
not talking about a Christmas issue 4 years ago.
Don't be afraid of the anthology, man. I think 4 or 5 solo books is well, no, it's a lot more than that. But I would say actually we could have 4 or 5 solo books. But then, a
solo anthology. I love this.
World of X and all of these writers in it.
Great.
But one book, because a lot of these stories are not. They're not.
Dazzler was a fun book, but I just don't know that it really needed to represent one of.
I think brevity could have really been the heart of joy. For a lot of these, just again, like an anthology where it's an ongoing story. So like you get that, but put it in print. Don't make it a Marvel Unlimited thing. Print it. print it out, World of X, and give a bunch of really great. This is, DC Horror Presents is that kind of anthology, but it doesn't matter. And that's kind of Nico's biggest critique. And it's one that I stand with, but like I see it a little differently because I'm being introduced to DC in a different way than you are. Marvel, you and I are essentially on the same page. And so this is one where I'm like, make it an anthology, make it in world, and give it some consequential stories, but tell everybody they're only getting 8 issues. They're only getting 8 pages. They get 8 pages a month, and do something fun with it. And that's how I would like to get to know a lot of these characters. And again, I would put Wolverine and Deadpool in that book. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't have to be Magic and Psylocke. Magic and Psylocke can have those solo titles. A bunch of them should stay, but a bunch of them should be in an anthology.
Cool Euro Asian ladies with swords can go shove it. It's like, yeah, I guess if you give a lady an accent in Marvel, you just give her a sword and hope for the best. Elektra, Magic, I'm like, we just said her name 2 seconds ago. Psylocke, that was terrible. No, but I do think that one of the things that's really exciting over at DC is the potentiality for change and newness, even in a world that is often daunted with its own memories. I feel like at Marvel, they try to bury their memories. They almost try to be embarrassed about their past, where at DC, their past is one of their greatest strengths. And so as Chip Zdarsky's Batman ends, I think it's next week or the week after, and we'll be covering it because I will be sobbing. It's going to be tough to say goodbye to that run, to say hello to Hush 2 by 2 creators who have seen incredible success over the course of the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. I am not against celebrating people with 40 years of success in the industry, but it is going to be hard to say goodbye to a writer and several artists who have all seen their incredible rise in the last 10 years. And so DC, it does wind up being a double-edged sword, and it's a little bit tougher to kind of grade on that regard because they're so inundated with history that DC Horror Presents has to be sort of all over the place and non-continuity because they've told all the spooky stories. Yet, coming to find out that this was only the 3rd volume of Power Girl ever, that really tells me something about how some of these characters have been treated over the years. And yet, all said and done, my book of the week was Fantastic Four 27 or 28, whatever number it was. The number doesn't matter. The vibe is what's good.
Yeah, I agree.
So succinct. Okay, Kevo, where can we find you?
It's almost 10 o'clock. Maybe
I'm so fucking tired. Kevo, where can we find you?
It's really true. You can find me on the socials as usual at Kevo Really. That's KEVOREALLY. Like I've been saying, I'm super stoked for 2025 and all the fun things we're going to be covering. We just finished Skeleton Crew today, so that was cool. We've got Section 31 coming up. So lots of cool, fun stuff to talk about this year.
Neil is my baby. I don't have children because they could not ever be as perfect, precious, or beautiful as Neil. So that's the whole reason I don't have kids. But we are going to keep covering amazingly fun things like Traders, artistic things like Drag Race, perfectly terrible things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we mentioned earlier this episode. Good luck, guys. I can't wait to see how this all goes.
Oh yeah, we got one of those coming up in a month. So
we got one of those coming up in a month. I
will at least have a fun popcorn bucket to show off.
Yeah, this is the first Marvel movie in a really long time that I'm going to go to like, it is what it is. And whatever I walk out of that theater feeling, it is going to be Nick standing in the mirror on New Girl. It's just going to be fine. So, God, we'll see it. But until then, I'm really excited about everything we're going to cover on this show, and things like Skeleton Crew are going to pop back in. And we've got, Kevo, you were saying how many things start in March is amazing. So I can't wait until then. And we'll just have to bide our time till the schedule permits. But TK, you help fill so much time in that schedule with your handsome haircut, with your wonderful blue sky presence, and with, of course, your excellent challenges to my willingness to accept whatever makes me nostalgically happy. I often think that my nostalgia is special because I attach to things that were like critically loved but commercially unsuccessful, like Jeff Buckley. But that doesn't necessarily mean that just because I'm picking the thing from 1993 that got the Wizard Fan Guide Award, but not the Sales Award, it's important. And I'm really grateful for the ways that you have kept my read of these things really balanced. I too reread Raid on Grey Malkin today, and or I think I read it yesterday, and found that my opinion of those early issues was a little lower than I thought. They had just been so much better than the issues that came before that I was overwhelmed with joy. So, end of the day, I really want to thank you for making sure that this show is always a holistic view, or as holistic a view as we can give, by never being afraid to challenge my opinion without ever, condescending in any way.
Well, and we balance each other out. Like on the opposite side of things, you being like, I was reading these and they're actually really good. put me in there with less of a like, okay, well, fuck this. I've started to read it and I wish I was dead. And so like I could still be critical, but like I didn't go in with a nasty attitude. And like sometimes, and you come to me with that. Sometimes we flip a lot. Like you will come to me and be like, no, I really did not think this was good. And it helps me not to be like, but it's my favorite story. It's got Cable, so it's great. It helps me to really be a little bit more like, no, if this is bad, it's okay. Like, doesn't mean that your character sucks or that this character won't ever be good again or that you have bad taste. But like, let's be real here. This is maybe a bad story. And sometimes I'm the person doing that. So anyway, we balance each other out well. It's the best. And, TK Accidental on the socials. It's my last week on Instagram. Man, it takes a while to get that download link. But I'll basically be on Blue Sky and maybe some Twitch and YouTube as I get going. But yeah, Blue Sky, we'll see you there. And Nico, where can everybody find you?
Oh, geez, that's going to be Nico Action and Nico Action Music, and NICOACTION and NICOACTIONMUSIC. You guys can check out the amazing back catalog for these shows at HTML. That's Husbands Talking More or Less, X is for Podcast, and X is for Show over at cageclub.me. We love you guys. Andrew, Bradford, guys, thank you so much for coming out, hanging out with us. We think you guys are just the bee's knees in all the best ways, and cannot wait to share this time and space with you guys again in the future. If you guys want to do more for us, you guys can like, comment, and subscribe because that definitely helps out with the algorithm. But if you guys want to do some stuff for yourself, you guys can, number one, stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. You guys can, number two, be brave. We want to see who you are. That's what matters. And don't forget, number three, you guys can you guys can evolve daily. I just really want you guys safe. It's so important. So 3, stay safe. 4, evolve daily, because who you were yesterday, incredible. Who you are today, amazing. But who you are tomorrow, that's the dream, and we can't wait. So until then, just keep flying United Airlines, and we'll see you.